Welcome in, everybody. Mike, Rick, thanks for being here and keeping us honest with the time. Sorry, we are a bit tardy. We are burning the candle a little bit at both ends as of late. I am in the middle of, I just closed on a home and I'm renovating it. So I've been painting and flooring and doing a bunch of that stuff all week. Boss Man has been deep in the editing bay as well as some other things, possibly pertaining to Biscuits and SEC that we will reveal at a later date. But we've both been quite busy. That said, we're a little bit tardy, but we do have a jam-packed show for you. As usual, we've got a Biscuit Index, our final installment tonight. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, saving the best for last, some would say. And Rick, not too far off. We'll keep that between you and me. And but yeah, we've got our Biscuit Index for Vandy, Mississippi State. It is the final installment, so thank you all for watching this series. We've got them all clipped up on the YouTube as well, so feel free to revert back to any of the prior shows if you want to see your favorite team. We'll probably touch briefly on the Protect College Sports Act being shelved in Congress as well before we dive into it. Boss Man, how you doing?
Man, I'm good. It still feels like the surface of the sun right now in Texas, but we're surviving. We're making it. I'm trying to. You can't see it really on screen, but I'm trying to summon fall right now with the greatest T-shirt that has ever been made, and that I own. I've owned it for years, and this is my summoning fall shirt. So I'm trying to bring in. Football's around the corner. It's the perfect shirt to wear for our final installment of the Biscuit Index series. And this one's so fun every year. I mean, I was thinking as I was doing this one today, just diving into Mississippi State and learning about, everything that's going to go on with them this year and kind of what they have going into 2026. Just, how much fun it is to do this, how blessed we are to do this. It's really, really fun. So thank you all for watching us and for helping us grow this channel. We really enjoy it. And it also, the last show means that football is right here, man. Like, we are so close. The last Biscuit Index rating show. That means football is, man, so dadgum close. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Indeed. I actually said that in the newsletter this morning. Plug, as usual, go sign up. Link is below. Free newsletter comes out Wednesdays during the off-season, Mondays and Fridays during the season, which we will pick that cadence back up shortly. But this morning I was typing it out, and I just felt myself longing for the 50-degree fall day with the grill fired up and, Reese Davis and the crew narrating my morning. So I'm feeling the pull of fall as well. We're so close to football season, not necessarily, full on fall, but football season means fall in my book. So we're very close, which is very exciting. We'll have some fun shows the next couple of weeks leading into the season, some actual predictions. But as I said tonight, it's back to our Biscuit Index for the final installment. Before we get into that, though, shout out to the Steer Agency for the sponsorship, as always. Appreciate those guys, aka Boss Man. But if you need any digital marketing, PR needs, hit them up. Not hard to find. We don't even have a graphic for the Protect College Sports Act because we're a little bit behind, but that's fine. We'll just keep the Steer Agency one up there. What did you want to hit on regarding that before we hop into the Biscuit Index for Vandy and Mississippi State? But that was, shelved before the summer recess in Congress. Feels like that's a pretty ominous sign for the potential of the bill to pass. Where do you stand on this? Is it good? Is it bad? Do you think it will pass, or is this bill doomed?
Not a good sign that they couldn't get it through before the August recess. And it seems like there's a whole lot of it's been constant moving parts with this thing. Finally at the 11th hour, the SEC and the Big Ten both get on board. And it looks like, hey, we've got some momentum. Maybe this sucker is actually going to pass. And then, of course, Congress does what it does, and it just doesn't end up passing. So I don't know where it kind of goes from here. We'll see. After the recess, it seems like there's been some talk that it could be revived. But truth of the matter is, right, if you kind of take a step back. Like November is the elections. Okay. So the midterm elections are coming up in November. And I don't think Congress is going to be very motivated to do very much, if anything at all, after the August recess, especially if this for Congress on the grand scale, of things going on is pretty far down the list, I would think, of things that they are going to be worried about right before the midterm elections. So at least for now, the sucker's probably shelved. And I personally, my 2 cents is probably not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. Probably going to have to find a new sponsor as well for the bill. Ted Cruz, I think, has signaled that to some degree that, somebody else will have to pick it up. Like he and Maria Cantwell have done just about all they can. So that's kind of where I stand on it. It didn't surprise me too much. I frankly didn't read too much into it because I saw that it wasn't going to pass, and I just kind of knew it with the writing on the wall what that meant. So give me, I know you wrote the newsletter this morning and you read a little bit more into this. Is there anything more you feel like adding or anything that I missed in terms of, just kind of updating folks on the news of where we're at?
No, I think that covers it. I like you, I didn't read too much into it. I was trying to keep up as best I could with the potential of it actually passing as opposed to even all the stipulations in it, because as you said, it felt like a long shot kind of from the beginning. So I think the only thing I'll add is both the Big Ten and the SEC initially came out against it and then flipped to endorsing it. I think like roughly a week ago. It was early last week. I included that in the newsletter a week ago, and it still doesn't really matter. So it was one of those things where it was always dead if the Big Ten and the SEC weren't on board. There was no way that was going to go through. Mm-hmm. But then they endorsed it, and it still doesn't really seem like it has the legs. So this is another sign that I just think the the NCAA and college athletics in general is just if you're looking to Congress for help, you're in trouble, and they've got to figure out a way. I mean, if it worked, great. I'm not saying that that's not a viable option to some degree, because it could be, but I think you have to look for your answer elsewhere as opposed to Capitol Hill for the help that you think you need, or the lifeline, because I just don't think that's a very, very viable option, as we've seen. They don't get a ton done, and especially when it comes to college sports. I mean, look, let's be honest. The people voting on this bill probably don't care or even know what's going on. So that's just kind of what it is.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that Congress has I don't even know what their approval rating is now, but years ago, within the last 2 years, it was at like 7% or like under 10% approval rating across the country. So, just put that with what's going on with what we're seeing with the PCSA, or the PCSA. Yeah. That's, what a surprise Congress failed on this one. So,
yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's likely done. I guess if it does resurface with any sort of momentum when they are back in session next month, we'll keep you informed of the newsletter, but I would suspect that one is done. Let's get right into it then. Let's get into the Biscuit Indexes tonight. As I said, we've got Mississippi State and Vandy. As a reminder, if you're new around here, this is we've been doing this for years. Previously was the 14 and 14, then 16 and 16 series that we used to write on the blog back in the day for you OG fans out there. But now we're doing it in video format where we just do a deep dive into where a program stands all the way back or all the way into, administration, facilities, NIL, investment, fan base, what have you. Kind of take a holistic 30,000-foot view of a program and give them a rating 1 through 12. Here's our ratings guide for the Biscuit Index. 1, the worst biscuit you've ever had, Civil War hardtack. 2, a biscuit from the Northeast. So on and so forth, all the way up to a 12, which would be, the best biscuit you've ever had. So here's a little bit more of the powerhouse, perennial national title contender. So that's kind of how we do it. We give them a rating 1 out of 10. We've got Mississippi State up first. So I will let you kind of intro this and take us down to Starkville and give us an update on how Mississippi State is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to just say, what's up, Talking Gators, my man. I was on a walk yesterday and I saw his stream. I know he's coming here multiple times as well, and just saw his stream running. And so I watched his show, man. I thought you did a great job, and love seeing what you do and catch your show whenever I can. So, man, thanks for hopping in the chat today. Appreciate it, man. Good to see you. So. Also, I think, I don't know if you put this up here, but I got this done really quickly. So here's where we're at. This is where we stand in terms of the Biscuit Index. And we've got the two final teams tonight to throw in there, right? So Georgia is at the top there, 12 biscuits. That is the cream of the crop in the SEC. And then it slides down just a little bit. Right underneath them, you got Texas, Ole Miss, and Alabama there on the 10 level. So that's really like your top four there in terms of the Biscuit Index as to overall where the programs are right now. That doesn't necessarily mean this isn't like our power rankings necessarily, right? I think if we did our power ratings for all 16 schools in the SEC, it might look a little different. But this is just overall health of the program, taking in all these different factors that we look at that Hammer laid out there just a minute ago. So this is where we stand. Yeah. Go ahead.
I would say this is, I should have confirmed, but yes, this is much more looking in the rear view as opposed to forward looking. This is not projecting or what we think this team could be this year. This is the last 5 years. Where do you stand? Again, on kind of all those different facets rolled into one. So yeah, this is much more of a rear view exercise as opposed to a forward projection, but just how have you been the last 5 full years?
Yes, that's right. Just overall health of the program, and then we do take into account like what we think they're going to be like this year based on kind of like we go through the roster and everything as well. So we take into that into account a little bit for the health, but yes, overall this is a overall health of the program. Take the last 5 years into account and look into all these different factors as to what makes a program healthy. So with that said, let's get into Mississippi State tonight and talk about what's going on in Starkville. Cue up my drum roll for me, please. Five biscuits for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So I think the first thing to say for Mississippi State is, right, look, this has been a team that in general, they're a perennial bottom dweller in the SEC, and they have been for a very long time. They've had little blips in their history, the Jackie Sherrill era, certainly, in the 90s and then in the early 2000s. They were a pretty solid team then. You had a blip in the Mike Leach era. They go 9-4 in 2022, and then sadly, rest in peace to the Pirate. We love him here at Biscuits and SEC, but it's been pretty tumultuous since then, since the Pirates' passing. So I feel like so last year, I look back, I guess I didn't get to my 16-16, which is formerly what the Biscuit Index was called for Mississippi State last year. But in 2024, they were 4. Okay. So 2024, that was coming off the 5-7 season, but that was when Zach Arnett got fired. So they got a 4 in 2024. So one above that now here in 2026. And if I had done one in 2025, I think they would have maybe gotten the first either 1 or 2. I don't think we've ever given out a 1 or a 2. And they probably would have gotten that because that was coming off the 2-10 season going into 25. So anyway, I gave them a 5 really because there is some hope. I mean, last year, and I'll talk about this as I go through this, last year, Mississippi State showed some promise. Okay. You get a big win. You beat number 12, Arizona State at home early in the season. That really gives you a push and a boost and a burst of momentum. Then you also have a couple games. You've got multiple teams here that are very solid programs, dead to rights. Okay. You couldn't put them down. You couldn't finish the fight. You couldn't finish the job. But you had Texas, Tennessee, and Florida all on the ropes. And you had them and you let them go. We let them off the hook, right? Mm-hmm. Denny Green, let him off the hook. But you had him right there. So between, looking at that and then looking at overall, I think where this program is, there's kind of some things that dinged him a little. I might have even gone with a 6, but there's a couple things that I dinged him on, which I'll get into in a little bit. Most of that has to do with the roster. But my question to you, looking at 5, if you had to eyeball it, if you were looking at Mississippi State, what would your rating be? You think I nailed it, or would you go lower or higher?
I think so. So for the ratings aficionados out there, 5 is defined as pretty dang burnt, but you can cut the top off and eat it like a silver lining. There's a little hope. 4 would be, there aren't many worse than us, long way to go. Eat a little bit of the mix your cousin sent in the mail, throw the rest out. And then 6 would be right in the middle, some hope, mostly bland. So I think you nailed it, because I think 4 is a little too bleak, given what you just noted last year. It was a big improvement from 2024. 2025, was a drastic improvement, not only in the win column going from 2 to 5, but you mentioned multiple games that they kind of gave away and were in a position to win that they couldn't capitalize on. But at the same time, this is not a team that, has earned a 6 biscuit, because they are not right in the middle. They're a pretty perennial bottom dweller at this point. And even last year in I hesitate to call it a resurgence, because they went 5-7, but you get the point that they improved a lot. They were still not middle of the pack. They were still very much bottom of the kind of, third at a minimum in the SEC. So I think 5 is fair, especially given, I don't really know still what to think of Jeff Lebby at this point, but he's only been there 2 years, and he went from 2-10 to 5-7. So there's definitely hope there. We'll see what that translates to this year, but I do think there's some potential there, and we can get into the roster and some of that stuff and see how it's looking. But I think it's fair to say there's some hope there. That I think that returned to Starkville last year.
Yeah, I think that's right, and especially too. I mean, there's one name I think that everybody knows on this roster. That's Commodore Taylor, the quarterback. Right, this kid has a very high ceiling. He's got a ton of potential. He flashed that last year late in the season when he took over for Blake Shapen. And he's a kid who I think can really fit into Jeff Lebby's offense well. So between the improvement that they made last year, and then you've got Commodore Taylor on this roster, which if you know nothing else and you just know that Commodore Taylor's there, it's like, okay, well, if he's got enough around him, this team could be really solid and really scare some people, just like they did last year, and maybe finally finish the job and get over the hump, and beat some of these teams. Maybe they get to 6-6 in a bowl game. Maybe they get to 7-5. I think that's on the table for this Mississippi State team. So let's start diving into this a little bit further. You mentioned it. I don't really know what to think of Lebby, right? This is definitely a pivotal year for him. The last 5 seasons here, bring my graphic back up. 23, we're 5-7. Zach Arnett gets fired. 2024, 2-10. Lebby's first year, total roster turnover. Rough year, don't win an SEC game. I mean, you're getting blown out almost every game. It was a really rough season for them. And then last year, as we just talked about, they start making serious improvements and had a couple teams on the ropes. You get ASU, you get a ranked win, you get an SEC win. So it's been a little bit tumultuous, but it feels like that 5 biscuit there, or 5 biscuits, pretty dang burnt, but there's a little silver lining. Cut it off the top. And then you look too at some other things. You look at the blue chip ratio, 15%. Oh boy. Okay. Rough. Not the best. 32 overall in the country, 12th in the SEC, not even close to the level that you need to win a national title. But it doesn't mean you can't win some games in the SEC. And it doesn't mean that you can't, that you don't have a couple players in this roster who are diamonds in the rough, which is something that Mississippi State throughout the course of their history, at least in the last 15, 20 years, has been finding diamonds in the rough everywhere. So when we talk about the administration, let's get into the nitty gritty. Okay. If you guys are new here, we go into all this stuff, right? It's kind of a little more than what you'll hear in most other shows because they really don't talk about this stuff. But we think this stuff matters to the health of a program, and that's your administration, your NIL, the investment that's being made into the program from the NIL side to the facilities and all of that, and fan support, et cetera. So the administration, this is one of the more stable administrations in college athletics. The president has been there. He's one of the longest serving presidents in the country. He's been there for 17 years, named Dr. Mark Keenum. His tenure began in 2009. So he's been there for a long time, a lot of stability at the top. That's always great to see, especially at these colleges, an institution like Mississippi State. That's a large institution. AD Zach Selman, he's been there for a while. Folks probably have heard his name. He's been there for a couple of years now. This is his third year on the job. Took over for John Cohen, who left and went to Auburn. Mississippi State fans, you guys can let me know, but I think Zach Selman so far has done a pretty good job. I mean, hiring Brian O'Connor in baseball was absolutely massive. Levy, it seems like, has this team going in the right direction. I think he's doing well in terms of what he's doing with the facilities and investment and things of that nature. So far, I think it's been pretty good returns on Zach Selman. But if there's Mississippi State fans who are a little closer to the heartbeat of the program in Starkville, I would love to hear your guys' opinion on that. And then obviously you got Jeff Levy here, third season on the job, and he's 5-year, $435 million, or excuse me, 4.35, not 435, 4.35 million a year. His contract runs through 2029. No extension has been given yet, which is a little bit interesting. So this is kind of like we said, pivotal year, prove it year, right? Got to make it happen. And then I think one other one to mention here, the general manager, Mark Vaudler, he was hired in 2024. Robbie Falk of On3, I read his article about it. He is described as a budding star in the industry. So was at Ohio State and was the director of player personnel there and is credited with some of those great classes Ohio State had in recent history. And then he was also the GM at Marshall. And he's got the Saban background. He was the director of player personnel at Alabama from 2019 to 2022. So, or assistant director of player personnel. So has that background with him too. So I think pretty solid hire there. And I think hopefully you'll see that if you're a Mississippi State fan in terms of the roster construction and maybe some of those diamonds in the rough that they're going to need. So moving in now to facilities, I think Mississippi State is a school in terms of their investment that does more with less, probably better than anybody, right? Everybody knows they're not one of the richest programs in the SEC by any means, not one of the richest programs in the country by any means. But based on what I'm seeing, they've been innovative in a couple ways. One of those was the balconies at Davis Wade. They basically put in open air suites that are about like $5,000, I think, a season. Maybe it's more than that now, but when they opened, it was $5,000 a season, and you could get these balconies. So it's up on the upper deck, and it's essentially like a mini outdoor suite. So kind of an innovative thing. Populous from Kansas City, which is a famous architecture firm that does a ton of stuff on these stadiums. They're the ones that did it. So pretty solid. I thought they're pretty innovative. And then they did what was it, $75 million? Yeah, $75 million expansion in 2014. And that increased the capacity past 60,000. Though I think we're down a little bit now that we put those balconies in. So I think still hover around 60,000. And then $9 million in upgrades just went in 2025, where they did the same thing as everybody else, got a new LED system, new tailgating layout at the junction. And then they've also added in fireworks upgrades, some drone shows, I guess, or something. And then upgraded concessions, and it did some things with the concourses. So look, it's not what other schools are spending, right? But they're doing more with less. We've talked about some schools spending $350 million, school spending close to $1 billion, right, on their stadium renovation, all this stuff. So they just don't have the money that others do, but they do as much as they can with what they got, and they're innovative in how they use that money. So I'm not going to dig too deep into their NIL investment here, but just to quickly go over it, as we've talked about, sand under our feet, everything's kind of changing. Everybody's trying these new things. But Hail State NIL, that's underneath the university. That's a Learfield one. And then they also have an
Mhm.
NIL collective. I think it's called the Bulldog Initiative. I don't know how active that one is anymore, but
Yeah, it's hard to get a read on it.
yeah, it's hard to tell, but State 1878 definitely is active, and that's a kind of what we've seen around these other schools, right? This membership-based access. You get news, you get intel, you get events, you get VIP treatment of some sort for your monthly membership that eventually goes into their NIL coffers. So, as I mentioned, they just don't have the money that others do, but they spent, according to the NIL standard estimate, around $22 million is about what their roster is valued at for 2026, which $22 million is, not chump change to us down here, but that is less than the SEC in terms of spending for NIL.
Yeah.
So, yeah, kind of what you'd expect. But look, if Levy's able to get to 6 wins, 7 wins, something like that, again, doing more with less. So, but you got to win. You got to follow through.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's not surprising. I agree that, they're doing what they can, but they've just never been at the top of the SEC and a lot of that stuff. And so it is what it is. But
right.
Good, good that they've got some continuity, at least the last couple of years at the AD. And I agree. I think the AD is doing a good job up to this point.
Mike says he would have gone with 4 biscuits. We're dealing with a team who has 2 conference wins in 24, and they're going to come up to Minnesota and beat your Gophers like a drum. Okay. Just for that comment.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Clip that and use that. Cause when PJ Fleck wins, they're going to put me on the Jumbotron, put Boss Man on the Gophers Jumbotron. So I get that, Mike. I think 4 is totally fair. I think you could have gone there. I think I'm probably a little bit more optimistic, maybe just with the Camario Taylor piece of this and the fact that, I think Jeff Levy made these improvements last year, get a big win against number 12 last year, get a win over Arkansas, get that SEC win. I know they were 1-8. So maybe there might be a little bit of hopium in my 5 biscuit rating, but I think we're right on the same page in terms of we're close, right? 4 biscuits or 5. All right, let's move into the coaching staff, and then I'll head down to recruiting, and then we will get into this roster a little bit more and talk a little bit about last season and then look forward to 2026. So there's a couple things I wanted to mention on this coaching staff. First of all, Philip Montgomery is there. Do you remember? I'd have to look this up. Somebody may remember in the comments. I think he was hired this year to come in. I think he was at Virginia Tech last year, maybe. Maybe he was the OC at Virginia Tech. Anyway, I didn't have a chance to look too hard into that, but I'm pretty sure this is his first year in Starkville. But Philip Montgomery is the former Tulsa coach. He's been around the block, but he's well known for having very highly productive offenses. So to have him, I think, paired up with Levy and to have them bouncing ideas off each other. So first year in Starkville?
First year in Starkville, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's just interesting to point out. Jeff Levy's the play caller. He's always going to be the play caller, I have a feeling. But Philip Montgomery, having him there, a kind of salty dog, been around the block for a while and knows offense like the back of his hand. Very, very smart offensive mind. So I think that's interesting. You brought him in. Zach Arnett is back at DC, the guy they fired a couple of years ago. This is like the new trend. We're bringing the head coach back who couldn't get it done as a head coach, but he can be the DC. Seen it at Virginia Tech and then also at Mississippi State. So but hey, Zach Arnett can run a defense, man. So I'm excited to see what it looks like with him back on the sideline in Starkville. And he's got a couple interesting pieces here that I think he can work with. And even with so much newness around Starkville, they're 86 overall in returning production, 48% in total, 48% returning production, 12th in the SEC. So there's a lot of newness here, and I'll get into why that is here in a minute. But he's got a couple pieces I think he can work with. So those are a couple guys to mention. A couple others to mention, I think that I like to kind of look down below the surface, right? Okay, who are the analysts? Like, who are some of these other guys that they're bringing in that are around the program? One of those is Matt Wells, senior offensive consultant. Matt Wells, former Texas Tech coach, former Utah State coach, also known as a very solid offensive mind in college football. So good to have him on the staff. Good to have him around the program, hanging out with Levy and with Philip Montgomery. And then finally, these are the two that I really wanted to mention just a little bit. I think this is great because it means that Levy is bringing guys back, and he's got folks who have been around the program, who have been in the program, who have done it at Mississippi State at a high level. He's got these guys coaching players up. Jet Johnson and Errol Thompson, both of those guys were all SEC guys at linebacker for Mississippi State in recent memory, and really, really good players. And he's got them as linebacker analysts now in Starkville, getting their coaching career started. So bang for your buck, man. That's a bargain, having those two guys teaching your linebackers the ropes as you go into the season. So I thought that was a really interesting thing to note.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah,
I have a comment that I'm gonna make, but I'll save it until the end because it kind of fits in anywhere. It's coaching staff related, but it's
okay.
I'll put a pin in it and I'll come back with it.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so let's get into the recruiting and the portal now. All right, here is the Mississippi State recent recruiting. It's kind of what you'd expect, right? It's been meh. This is Mississippi State. They got to find diamonds in the rough. They dot the roster with a couple guys. They develop players, and usually they have a couple, 2 draft picks or so that are on the roster, and they do the best with what they got. And it's not like they've been recruiting terribly. Okay, not a single class has been outside the top 30 in the last 5 years. But this is the SEC, and you're recruiting up against the big dogs, all right? All these other big programs. I mean, look at this. This is the full Biscuit Index we just did, right? Who are you recruiting against? LSU and Florida and Texas and A&M and Georgia and Oklahoma. Well, somebody's got to be at the bottom, and Mississippi State is, even though they're recruiting pretty much at a top 25 level. They're averaging 27th overall nationally over the last 5 years, even with a couple coaching changes. There's 3 coaching changes in that span. Okay. So recruiting at a top 25 clip across 3 different coaches is pretty impressive when you really think about it. At a place like Mississippi State, you'd expect like a 45 in there somewhere, 45 burger, but they've been able to kind of keep it above water in a sense.
That's very impressive across 3 coaches.
It is
very impressive.
It actually is. Yeah. So 12th in the SEC, that's their average. Here's the big thing that I do want to point out, and this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier. Zach Arnett's got a couple of key pieces there, some stuff he can work with, but there's a lot of newness. Well, why is there a lot of newness? That's because this roster is turning over every single year. I mean, I know that's like, look in the bottom corner here, all right? Bottom right, 2025. Those are that last column there are how many players left and went into the portal and left Mississippi State, okay? So over the last 5 years, they've lost 30 players on average every single year. And yeah, that's kind of the new norm in college football in terms of you're going to lose some players. Everybody's dealing with it. But Mississippi State is at the top with Arkansas when it comes to the SEC in terms of players that they're losing. So they've lost basically 40 players in the last 2 seasons, 80 total, right? So 78 players total have left this roster into the portal, not even counting guys who are out of eligibility or who are going to the draft. That's crazy. And it's one thing that I'm interested. I actually kind of want to hear what you think about this, because I really don't understand it at this point. All right. This is Jeff Lebby's 3rd season or 4th season, right? We're going into year 4, 3,
I think.
Going into year 3.
Sorry, 2 and 10. Yeah. 2 and 10, 5 and 7. Yeah.
But even still, we're going into year 3. Okay. Why? I get it after the first year, something like that, or after Zach Arnett gets fired or whatever. Sure. There's going to be a lot of kids that enter the portal and leave. But I just don't really understand how Jeff Lebby can't keep a lot of this roster in Starkville. It's turning over every year. And if there's stability in a program, I know everybody's dealing with it, but most people are looking at like in the 20s. All right. You're looking at like 20-ish players who get in the portal every single year. Mississippi State's dealing with 40, basically double that. Why? Yeah, I just don't know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer to it either. My suspicion is it's NIL related. Whether that's
Probably right.
legitimate, somebody is getting a better offer elsewhere, or it's perceived and somebody thinks I can get a better offer and I hit the portal. I don't know, because if you look at the guys that are leaving Mississippi State, let's not act like they're going to Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and Indiana and Penn State, whoever, name a big program. It's there. Some are, but they're not all leveling up or going to a program that might have a higher NIL budget. So my assumption is it's mostly NIL related, but I guess my skepticism would lead me to believe I don't know how much of that is legitimate versus just these kids have agents in their ears. Because I'm with you, especially like we just talked about. Hey man, it feels like there's real potential here to build something. We go from 2-10 to 5-7. That's a huge improvement. And we were very close to winning a couple other games. We could have been 7-5 if the ball bounces our way. So why do we have 39 guys hitting the portal? I'm with you. I don't understand it, especially in, after 2 years of Jeff Lebby. It's like pretty clear what you're going to get. But yeah, my guess is just kind of NIL related, which I think is kind of what Arkansas was. Although Arkansas also had the sort of dead man walking Sam Pittman scenario, which I don't think Mississippi State had. I mean, obviously they don't have it. He's not on the hot seat. Maybe if things go terribly this year, he would get fired. But even then, I don't really know where they stand on that. And my opinion would be he's not on the hot seat at all. So maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mississippi State fans, but it doesn't seem like guys would be leaving the program because they think there's a coaching change imminent. So I don't really know. I think it's unfortunately just a symptom of, the current system we're in. Guys think they can maybe get more money or they want to play. So they do go, they're getting hit on both sides. The good players think they can make more money. The guys that rode the bench are tired of riding the bench and they want to go play somewhere.
Yeah. So Mike makes a good point here in the chat, which is maybe he's running them off. Maybe they're not up to par, right? Maybe he's just trying to, okay, we got to 5-7, but now we can get some better players, right? Like, I feel like we've got some guys that aren't up to snuff and aren't doing what the team requires, whether it's because of talent or whether it's off the field stuff or what have you. Yeah, maybe he is running them off. And we talked about that in previous episode when we talked about Sark after SEC Media Days, when he said he literally named the players, right? Like we let him go. Basically, we thought we could do better, and we did. We got Cam Coleman and blah blah blah. So but that was a little different in terms of like Texas let go of like 5 players. Like I think like legitimately had conversations maybe with like 5 kids and said, yeah, we're going to go a different direction. But Mississippi State, there's no way they're telling 40 kids to leave, But
I wouldn't think so. And
it could contribute to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, obviously. And I also, my pushback there would be Texas had a great portal class. Mississippi State had the 40th portal class.
Yeah.
Right. So
right.
Again, it's hard to compare those two programs, especially when it comes to recruiting. On the field, they were very close last year. They went to overtime. But when it comes to recruiting and money and what have you, Texas towers over them, as they do most programs. But
right.
Yeah, it's tough. I think if that's possible, he could be doing that with some guys, but like you said, you don't want to be doing that with 40 guys every year, because then you just have no continuity for many reasons outside of just talent alone. That's a bad idea.
It's just very hard to build a program and a culture when you're just constantly turning the roster over. So it is one thing that I kind of have an asterisk by of like, I said at the outset, there are things to be excited about, and there's also a couple things to knock them on and dig them on, and it kind of like make you scratch your head and file away of like, but I don't know about that, So just something to watch as we watch Mississippi State this season and over the next couple of years, and to see if that trend continues. Do they keep losing 40 kids, and are they getting they're bringing in a ton of kids too, right? I mean, this season they brought in 27 players out of the transfer portal, but that was still only good for the 40th in the country because, like, are the players that they're bringing in that much better? Maybe they're identifying some great diamonds in the rough, and they're going to develop these players better than anybody, and maybe that's their calling card, right? But just something to think about as we watch it over the next couple of years. All right, let's move now into the roster construction. So, as you guys who watch us frequently know, I have my own little rating system for the roster here. Okay, so this is my roster rating system. Question mark. I do this for each position group. Basically, I go position group by position group, and I say, question mark. Is there serious questions here at this on this group? Mediocre is M. Are they okay? Are they so-so based on what I'm seeing with the eye test? AA above average, S for strength, and S plus is your best position group on the team. That's the one that leads the team. Probably going to be the best of the bunch, or at the very least, it's the best position group on that side of the ball. So this season, here's what I'm looking at for the Mississippi State roster. I think the offensive line is kind of mediocre. And then I think they're above average at a lot of these other ones. I think I probably could have gone mediocre at wide receiver and tight end, and offensive line was teetering on a big question mark. And I think looking at it now, maybe I would give them a question mark. So I'll go through this quickly in terms of the offense here. But in terms of the offense, the reason I say it's mediocre to question mark, teetering, is because you lost 4 starters and 3 backups. So you lost 7 players off the offensive line, and you brought in 8 transfers.
Jeez.
Okay. So I'm already questioning Bossman's rating system, question mark, right? 44 starts overall. So of the offensive linemen they brought in from the portal, 44 starts overall. So they've got some experience, and we'll see if that matters and see if that they mesh. But projected starters here, Cannon Boone, he's the only returner. He is a senior. And then you've got a bunch of transfers. You got LSU transfer DJ Chester. You got LJ Prudhomme at right guard. I think I said his name right. Arkansas transfer. And then you got left tackle Miles McVay Jr. He's an Alabama transfer. And then Jakeep Shumpert Perkins, who is a senior. He's not a starter. He's a returner, but he was not a starter last season. But he's expected to be a starter. He had 2 starts, I believe, last season. So we'll see. I mean, that's I think to me, right, looking at the offense, that is the biggest question mark here is can they protect Kamario Taylor and can they open up the running lanes for Fluff Bothwell? And Fluff Bothwell's a solid – he's the best. I love that name. He's a really good running back. And so are they able to protect Kamario Taylor, give him enough time to get the ball to some of these weapons on the outside and give Fluff Bothwell some running room? And I think, we'll see. We're going to find out pretty quickly when they go to Minnesota in week 2. But the other thing I think that's interesting there too is I think with a quarterback like Kamario Taylor, Blake Shapen last year for most of the season, he was more of he's a pocket passer, right, for the most part. He could get out of the pocket a little bit and shimmy shake a little bit, but it wasn't much, right? Kamario Taylor, on the flip side, he's an athlete. Okay, he could throw the ball for sure, but he can also get out of the pocket and he can run a little when he needs to. So maybe if your offensive line has some woes, they need to give him a little time to throw, but maybe with his legs, he can negate some of those sacks that would happen on a different style of quarterback. But definitely offensive line, biggest question mark. I don't need to go through this for too long. Kamario Taylor, he's the guy, right? If you know one player on this roster, you know Kamario Taylor. And we'll see how it goes this year. I think he's in a good offense for him. The biggest question to me is, does he have enough around him? And we'll see. I think we'll find that out over the course of the season. Running back, above average to me. Fluff Bothwell is a solid running back. So give him some running room, give him some space, give him some holes from that offensive line. I think it'll be solid. They also have a guy named Colin Wilson who flashed in spring. Folks are looking for him to get some carries as well this year. Media in Starkville is calling this the best and deepest running back room that Mississippi State has had in years. So We'll see. Jury's out from 30,000 foot view from the glass, outside the glass looking in. I see some talent in the running back room. I'm interested to see how it goes. Maybe they will be proven right by the end of the season. All right, let's move here into the defense. Mediocre, I have on the defensive line. I've got S+ at linebacker, and in the secondary, I've got mediocre, and special teams, I got mediocre as well. So, so. On the defensive side of the ball, I got a couple key pieces, as I mentioned earlier, that Zach Arnett can work with. So, defensive line, they added 5 transfers. They lost 7 off of last year's defensive line.
Man,
so pretty big question mark. I mean, right? We brought in 39 guys left, and we brought in whatever I said it was. What was it, like 28, 27? So it's just a lot of newness. And Will Whitson comes back. He had an injury last year, but he was playing pretty well early on before he got injured. So they're expecting him at defensive end to be pretty solid. Dylan Evans transferred in from A&M. He was a pretty big recruit. I'm interested to see how he does. And then they got DJ Reed at defensive tackle. You got Calvin Dinkins there as well. Both those guys had 2 sacks last year, expected to make big jumps this year. So kind of like, hey, there's some talent there, but again, let's see it, prove it. They need to get some pressure on the quarterback. Linebackers, that's where I gave the S+. Isaac Smith, I think, is the key to this defense. He's a stud. He's going to be the tent pole that Zach Arnett builds his defense around. He's at the star. 2024, he was second-team All-SEC. They have five linebackers. This was, according to Phil Steele, they've got 5 linebackers who can legitimately play. Deepest position group on the team, and these guys are solid. So this linebacker core could be really what makes this defense hum, I think, all season. Secondary, 1 starter returning, added 6 transfers. God only knows. Okay, we'll see how the secondary is. It was decent last year. It was middle of the pack in the SEC, but it's all new guys, man. So who knows? I don't know how they're going to be at all. One thing to mention, too, about the defensive line, Mississippi State was last in the SEC last season in rush defense. So that defensive line has got to get a lot better. They got to be getting pressure on the quarterback, but biggest thing is they got to start stopping the run.
That
all right,
worries
talk to me about what do you think?
Just not having looked too much into Mississippi State coming into the year. 5 defensive linemen, 7 offensive linemen gone worries me. Yeah. We talk all the time. SEC, it's one in the trenches. You lost everybody in the trenches. Not that they were that good, but that's a lot of new faces, man.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. And they gotta make it all mesh. So up to the coaching staff. We'll see what it looks like. Again, week 2. Talk about it a little bit. Minnesota's not a bad Big Ten team. Those guys are middle of the pack to upper half in the Big Ten every single year. They've been consistent. PJ Fleck wins 8+ games a year, and they always have massive offensive linemen, and they run the daggum ball. So we'll know very, very quickly if that defensive line is going to be able to hold up, because they're going to play an SEC type of offensive line when they play Minnesota. All right, let's move in here to what went wrong in 25, what went right in 25, and then we'll talk about 2026, and then we'll get into the schedule a little bit, and then we'll move into Vandy. So, all right, what went wrong in 25? I talked about it a little bit earlier. You couldn't finish when it mattered. You had Texas, you had Tennessee, you had Florida on the ropes. You had them, man. You were able to finish off Arizona State. That's great. But this year, we got to finish the job. I mentioned this a second ago. The defense gave up 30.2 points per game. They had the worst rush defense in the conference. So that's why Zach Arnett was brought back. That's why they have a new defensive coordinator. Zach Arnett's got to get this thing figured out, got to stop the run better, and have to get the secondary, which is basically all new, up to snuff very quickly. Otherwise, they're going to get torched all year long. So we'll see how that works out for them. What went right in 2025? Got an SEC win, got that ASU win, and you found your quarterback in Kamario Taylor. Late in the year, he starts to come up. All right, he takes over for Blake Shapen when Blake Shapen gets injured. But he showed flashes, and it looks like with some development and some time and just snaps and reps, this kid can be really solid. And then obviously last year as well, Brennan Thompson was electric. He was really solid at wide receiver. So there were some good things to take away from last year for sure, right? 5-7, made some improvements. definitely, if you're a Mississippi State fan, while there were some crushing losses, I mean, absolutely just, pain when it comes to those that I mentioned, Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. There was still some silver lining and some bright spots for the Bulldogs. So, what do they need in 2026? We got to build on that momentum. We got 5 wins last year. We could have had 6. We could have had 7. Then let's get the 6. This year we got to finish. It's just literally it's one word: finish. Finish some of these games when you've got these teams on the road. Get to a bowl game. Get to 7-5 if you can. Let's just keep making progress. Let's not dip back down to 4-8. Let's not go 3-7. At the very least, let's stick at 5-7. And we got to make some improvements too. I think it's pretty much that simple. And I know that seems broad, but sometimes it really is that simple. It's just about a mentality thing. And I think this program just needs to instill that and just finish the job. When you got them by the neck, just go for the jugular, right? So,
yeah, and it's hard to say, what do you need in 26 when the whole roster's basically new. It's like, well, we need a lot of different guys to pan out. So let's make this pretty broad here and just win the games you're in a position to win, because we could name a lot of different position groups specifically and say, well, we need this transfer to work out. We need that transfer to work out. So I like that.
Right. So let's finish this off here. I want to go through their schedule a little bit, and then we can talk about how they can earn some extra biscuits here. It's the SEC. It's tough. It's hard. We know. And also you get this out of conference in Minnesota, which that's a big measuring stick. All right. That game in week 2 right there, going on the road to Minnesota.
Yeah.
What do you got? Minnesota's not a bad team. Minnesota's a solid Big Ten school. And is Mississippi State able to go up and get a big road win? We'll see against the team that they should match up well with. And also, it's going to be bragging rights for the SEC on that one, obviously. Right? So, can Mississippi State, a typical lower rung team in the SEC, are they able to beat a mid-tier Big Ten team? We'll see. But the big one to me here, all right, so I think I went through this. I think you're favored in 2 to 3 games. I don't think you're favored much. Don't expect to be favored.
No.
Toss up, I think you probably got one game that you're toss up. And then I think you got 7 to 9 games here where you're a dog. So it's going to be tough, man. The big stretch to me, I mean, this is just an absolutely brutal stretch here. Thank God you get a bye in the middle of it. But Alabama, week 5, week 6 bye, week 7 LSU, got to go to Baton Rouge, week 8 Oklahoma, and then you go in week 9 to Texas. And then, don't forget week 10 Vanderbilt, who we'll talk about here in a minute. And Vandy won 10 games last year. Like, I mean, thank you, Greg Sankey. So, yeah, the schedule is rough.
That's really rough. I mean, anytime you got a 9-game SEC schedule, but then, like you said, add that road trip to Minnesota, who is one of the most consistent teams in the country, frankly, that's really, really challenging.
Yeah.
Gosh, and like you said, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like you want to kind of build some momentum, but the schedule just doesn't allow that, dude. You better be ready to roll by week 2. Because if you get punched in the mouth at Minnesota, great. Here comes Williams-Brice. It's 100 degrees, and South Carolina is pretty good. And then you host, it's just there's really no breaks from week 2 through the season. I mean, they still get the Tennessee Tech game later, but by that point, you're a zombie team if things don't go well. if things do not go well early on, you'll win the Tennessee Tech game, but you might be dead.
I mean, you almost think that like Minnesota there it's a must win in a sense, because you want to get some momentum. If you don't get some momentum going into the rest of this, gauntlet, this, grinder, gosh, I don't know if you got a shot.
Well, for the gamblers out there, it's an absolutely must win. If their over and under is 4, you've got ULM and Tennessee Tech, and then you got to get 3 more to cash the over. Minnesota is absolutely a must win if you're going to get to 5 wins. Looking at this schedule. Now, that said, if things go well, South Carolina, Missouri, Vanderbilt, Auburn, Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. I mean, it's the Egg Bowl. Never say never. Like, those are games where it's possible, but as you said, they will not be favored. So you're going to have to be pulling off upsets left and right, which is just easier said than done.
Yep. It sure is. So I just wrote one thing down. I had one bullet point here for how they can earn some extra biscuits. I think let's keep that momentum going. And that means get to a bowl game. Let's get to 6-6. And looking at that schedule, it's not going to be easy. But get to a bowl game. That'll earn some extra biscuits, or get to 7-5. Easily, that'll get you up to 6, I think 6 biscuits. So,
yeah.
Just keep the momentum going, Bulldogs.
Well, I don't want this to start a diatribe. But just give me a quick. You could even give me a yes or no response here. But I said I had a question for you about the coaching staff, and I'm curious your take. Let's say they win 4 or 5 games this year, Mississippi State. Dan Mullen and UNLV go 11-1, make the CFP. Are you making that call?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think you would be stupid not to. If you are Zach Selman sitting in that chair, I think that if that is the scenario, okay, if Jeff Lebby's at 4 wins, let's say they go 4-8, and they go 11-1, and Anthony Calandria lights the world on fire, and UNLV goes to the college football playoff, I think that you have to at least back channel. All right, start with the back channel. Let's have your people call my people, and let's see if there's any interest. If there's no interest, you lay your hands off and you say whatever. Okay, but he was the best coach in Mississippi State history. All right, when it comes down to it, Dak Prescott, all sorts of stuff. They were winning 8-9 games a year consistently under Dan Mullen. So he got them to number 1 in the country. Okay, in 2014. You have to at least back channel there. So that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I was just curious. Of one thing to note, Calandria, I believe, is at Nebraska now. Dan Mullen famously
you're right.
Is reviving Jackson Arnold to see if he has a pulse. But
that's right.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you do at least back channel and see. And I think Dan Mullen, I think he would be interested. It's a new era, very different time. It's not the same job that he took whenever, but I think he'd be interested. But anyway, that's a conversation for later in the season if those two things are panning out that way. Let's move into Vandy. So our final Biscuit Index of the year, we have the Vanderbilt Commodores led by Clark Lee. So let me cue up my drum roll here, and we'll give you the Biscuit Index. Boom. 7.
Whoa, Nelly.
Thanks to Theo Vaughn and Clark Lee and Jared Curtis. So I went with a 7 here. I think it was a little bit difficult because in the last 5 years, they have 2 2-10 seasons, which is really bad. But I have a hard time, again, looking back, not necessarily projecting forwards what I think they will be. I had a hard time looking at them and saying that they are not ascending. I mean, they went 10-2 and finished in the top 15 of the CFP last year. Diego Pavia finished second in the Heisman voting. They hosted College Game Day. They were on the road in Tuscaloosa at another game day location. Like, they were the real deal in every facet of the game last year. And the year prior, they were 6-6, 7-6 with the bowl win last year, 10-3 with the bowl loss. But it really, really feels like they have momentum building over the last 2 years. And so I think, to me, that, kind of outweighed the bad, rough years in the early part of the Clark Lee tenure, but just for the definition here, 7 Biscuits ascending. Program has hope, momentum, a shot to take a step up. Burger King will have to do. I thought that was pretty fair given the rise that we have seen out of Vandy the last couple of years, and some, off the field stuff I think they have going for them that we can hop into. But what do you think? Is that too high, too low, perhaps? Am I discounting Vandy here? What is your read on the Biscuit rating?
I think you could have gone with a 6 because of that totality of there's a couple 2-10 seasons there in the last 5 years. But you can't discount what has happened in the Diego Pavia era of the last 2 years, where they beat Alabama 2 years ago, right? They beat number 1 Alabama, the first number 1 win in program history for Vandy. And then they follow that up by they didn't talk up all, or they didn't back up all of Diego Pavia smack talk in the offseason, which was, we're going to win a natty or whatever. Mm-hmm. But they backed up a lot of it. They went 10-2, and they had Texas on the ropes in the fourth quarter in Austin. So I don't think that you can put them at nipping at the heels of the elite. McDonald's did a damn good job this morning. That would have been 8 Biscuits. I don't think you can go that high. I think, hey, you follow that up again. Let's win 9 games this year. Okay, yeah, let's maybe then we're talking about getting up to 8 Biscuits. But I think 7 is a good happy medium there, because I do think that I don't think they are right in the middle, right? How can you say that after the last 2 years and with a 10-2 season? Probably should have been in the playoff. All right. I 100% believe Vandy should have been in the playoff last year at 10-2. It's insane to me that you can leave a 10-2 SEC team out of the playoff. But yeah, so I get it. I think 6 or I think 7's right on the money.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, 2025 was the best season in program history. So yeah, it's hard not to like the direction it seems that Vandy's going. So a little bit more, in depth. It's hard to imagine a team going 10-2 with Vandy's sort of roster construction, but Clark Lee does a heck of a job and is finding diamonds in the rough, and they have a good staff that gets the most out of their guys, because their blue chip ratio is terrible. 8%, 16th in the SEC, and 50th overall. So yeah. You have a top 15 team a year ago, and you're 50th in terms of, on paper talent. So heck of a job from Clark Lee and his staff. Again, recent results, 2-10 in 23. Then the turnaround starts. He brings in Pavia. He brings in Tim Beck. He brings in Jerry Kill. He brings in Eli Stowers, basically the New Mexico State team. And they go 7-6, and then they go 10-2. Recruiting, pretty similar. Not that good. 36, 80, 29, very all over the place. Much less consistent than even a Mississippi State. So this is an interesting experiment to see. I think, again, the momentum is there. This program, as of now, today, August 12th, is ascending. Do they have staying power? Because what they're doing is very difficult to find diamonds in the rough consistently, to get the most out of your guys consistently, push them to the very maximum of their ability. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? So I'm very interested to see how, this year goes in the Clark Lee tenure, but hard to argue with the results and what they've been doing on the field the last couple of years. And I actually was reading when I was doing the research on this, Clark Lee talked about when he first took the job. So he took the job in 21. So he's going into year 6, 5 years he's been there. 2-10, 5-7, 2-10, 7-6, 10-3. He said when he took the job, it was a 10-year job, like rebuild basically, or that was his goal. He felt like he had a 10-year plan to get Vandy where he wanted them to be. And I don't know if they're where he wants them to be. I assume they're not yet, but he kind of got, he got them to the highest high they've ever been to in year 5. And this is just a different job expectation wise than others. Otherwise, he would have been fired after 3 years. You can't go 2-10, 2 out of 3 years at most SEC schools and keep a job. But it's Vanderbilt, and I think Clark knew what he had in front of him, and so did the administration, which leads me into the next part of all this.
Well,
they have some good continuity.
Well, before you get into that, because I agree with you that was about it, right? Like the segue there is a lot of things that needed to be done in order to get this program back, and that includes the investment and all. It was a 10-year rebuild, like Clark Lee said, not because of just the roster and everything, but literally from nuts to bolts, from top to bottom, rebuilding everything and anything. One thing I want to say before you got into it is, you talked about how this is an experiment and do they have staying power, and with the recruiting classes, right? I know you'll get into this a little later. I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about it, but it's also a big experiment because you got the number 1 quarterback in the last class.
Mm-hmm.
And does he have enough around him? Like we'll see. That experiment is going to be interesting to watch. And I also think too, this team went 10-2 last season. This is the least talked about 10-2 team I can remember. This team went 10-2 last season, and this offseason, I have heard like nothing about Vandy. No one is talking about Vanderbilt. It's like, oh, okay, well, it was Diego Pavia. Diego Pavia is gone now. Okay, it's Vandy. Like they're going back to being Vandy. Don't even worry about it. Maybe, I don't know. So anyway, floor's back to you. I just wanted to say that, and I'm fascinated to see as you lay this out, maybe if they do have staying power.
Yeah, well, I think that's the big question here, and we'll see. I think there's perhaps more of a middle ground where 10-2 isn't the norm, but neither is 2-10, right? So, What is Vandy long term? Time will tell. But on the structure and the administrative side, as I mentioned, part of the reason I think Clark Lee didn't get fired and knew it was a 10-year rebuild is because basically everybody around him was hired about the same time as he was. So they've kind of been on this ride together. So Barton Simmons, his general manager, his childhood friend, former 247 and Rivals and all that employee and recruiting guy, has been his GM from day one. He's still there. And I think you have to say has done a tremendous job at this point. Again, finding diamonds in the rough, getting the most out of guys that are overlooked. The athletic director, Candace Story Lee, has been there since 2020. So she hired Clark Lee. And the president and chancellor, Daniel Dyermeyer, has also been there since 2020. So he was, they had a lot of turnover in 2020, and then Lee gets hired in 21, and now they've been riding it out. So my assumption would be, knowing Clark Lee, the type of guy that he is, and being a Vanderbilt alum, is he's in lockstep with the president and the athletic director. And to segue this, he's kind of getting what he needs, right? Let's look at facilities and stadium. Vanderbilt's upgrading. It's Vanderbilt. It's not a 100,000 seat stadium, but they put a ton of money and effort and work into First Bank Stadium over the last couple of years, right? It was just completed last year. They built a whole new south end zone. It's 130,000 square feet. They have upgraded premium seating options. They have an enclosed concourse. Basically the new stadium, small, albeit, is really cool. And it's a great game day environment. And that's something Vandy needed. I mean, they used to be the butt of everybody's SEC jokes that, oh, Vandy, that's a home game for my program. I'm from, because Nashville's a big city. It pulls from all the SEC schools in terms of alumni, and Vandy had no fans and the stadium stunk. So nobody even wanted to go, even if Vandy was good, except for away fans, because they could make a Nashville weekend trip out of it. And we'll go to this dumpy stadium, but it's really because we want to go to Nashville for a weekend. Well, now there's still a lot of away fans there, but it's more or less than it used to be, because Vandy fans are showing up and buying tickets And part of that's because the team's good, but I think a lot of that too is just the atmosphere and the experience and the investment that they put into that. And outside of football, that they're not done. So this is a whole, capital campaign, $300 million project. The football stadium was the first wave. They're working now on an indoor practice facility, so they're still up in the process of upgrading the practice side of things. And then they're adding some stuff. Enhancements to the baseball field, and then they're building a big Olympic sports complex. So Vanderbilt is investing, and again, I think that there's some synergy there between Lee and the big higher ups there, because this was just not. I mean, Vanderbilt has stunk at football for most of their history, but also they didn't give a darn about it, right? They didn't invest anything. It was this is an academic school, which is fine, but they didn't care about athletics. Now they seem to care.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, David,
Right
thank
there.
you for the comment. Love it. I mean, genuinely, I have not been to Vanderbilt Stadium. I would love to go now. Where 5 years ago, I would have said, I'm good. Thanks. I'll go somewhere else. So, I think they've done a tremendous job there.
I love what Clark Lee's building. I mean, from everything he's done from start to where we are now, like it has been building up to where they are, and then to continue to ascend. And I'm totally with you. The investment they've made, like they have really said, no, we want to compete. We don't just want to compete in basketball. We don't just want to be the academic school, the Harvard of the South kind of thing. No, we actually want to be good in football, and we want to be known to be good in all our sports. Baseball too, right? They're good at baseball. But I have been very encouraged over the last couple of years of how Clark Lee has pushed this along with their athletic director. And when I saw them announce that $300 million, that capital campaign and all the stuff that they were doing into football and everything, I was like, heck yeah, man, let's do it. I love it. And now I want to go to Nashville because Nashville is fun, but I also want to go to the Vandy game. Like I actually do want to go see my team play at Vanderbilt and see the stadium and go check that stuff out. And Nashville is just a good plus, that it's there. So yeah, I love what they're doing. David, thanks for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. And one other thing, again, just to speak on Vandy athletics as a whole, you brought up the baseball team. We know they're good. The basketball team's been good. I think Candace Lee Story's doing a phenomenal job leading it. Mark Binghamton, don't know how to say his name.
Can't say his name.
The Vanderbilt basketball coach is good. And they were a dumpster fire under Jerry Stackhouse. So they're making the right moves. They're deploying capital strategically because, again, they don't have the budget of Texas or Texas A&M or what have you, big state school. It's a private institution. They have plenty of money, but it's just things are different. But I think they're doing a great job with what they have. And I think that's a testament, again, to that, alignment of the higher ups and of Clark Lee as well, because you got to be a salesman as a football coach. You got to be able to get people to believe, and he's doing that. On the NIL side of things, Vandy's a private institution. I couldn't find out much of anything about what they have going on. They have a like a internal NIL platform or department. It's called Anchor Advantage. It was formed earlier this year. So after the House settlement last summer, took them about 6 months. In February, they formed this Anchor Advantage department to manage the brand partnerships. So I think basically in lieu of a Learfield or whatever that one was, like Play Sport, that these other institutions are partnering with and basically, using for help with NIL. Vandy seems to be doing that themselves. Again, private institution. So I really don't know what that looks like, but they're doing it themselves. Estimations have their roster valued at about 28 million, which is 12th in the SEC. So kind of about right where you'd expect them, probably. So again, hard to know exactly what's going on. But my assumption would be, 12, anywhere from like 8 to 12 to 14 on a given year is probably about where they would be, just based on size, history, alumni base, etc. But I don't think they're hurting for money. They're just never going to be one of the biggest spenders. So let's see. Coaching staff, as we've talked up Clark Lee a ton. Can't say enough about the job he's done. I do think, though, a lot of it comes from, and Clark would tell you this as well, the staff that he brought in from New Mexico State. Jerry Kill is the chief consultant to the head coach and senior offensive advisor. So Clark Lee pried him out of retirement to come to Nashville. I think he's been a huge value add to that program and to Clark Lee as a head coach. As Lee has stated several times, in praise of Jerry Kill, he basically, after the second 2-10 season 3 years ago, he's like, I went back to the drawing board, and part of that process was being humble enough to hire a guy like that to help him, walk him through some stuff, and put his hand up and say, I don't know it all, help me. And I think Jerry Kill's done a good job of that. They also brought in Tim Beck, the offensive coordinator, who was at New Mexico State, and that guy's done an awesome job. The offense he runs is super cool. It's kind of a unique triple option pistol type of offense that uses a lot of motion, a lot of triple option principles, is super hard for teams to prepare for, is kind of the perfect offense for a team like Vandy that's generally speaking going to be undersized or maybe a little bit, lacking in the talent or athletic side of things. But, they can use their offense and run it to perfection to kind of confuse and catch people off balance. I mean, if you want to see it, look no further than LSU last year. That game, Pavia had the D line and the front seven on skates. LSU was a good defense last year, and it didn't matter. Pick Six Previews, our friend Brett Ciancia, who does that, great publication, he had them as the number one offense in the country in his opponent adjusted metrics. So Tim Beck, stud, doing a really good job there. And again, continuity. This will be his third year there. So Clark Lee's doing the right things on the staff. Defensive coordinator Steve Gregory, a little less praise of him, I guess. He was not the New Mexico State staff. He's been, connected to Clark Lee at a couple different stops, but long time, he played in the NFL in the secondary. He's been a coach for a long time, both in college and the NFL. And he's been the defense coordinator there now, I think just for the last 2 or 3 years. And he's done a good job. I mean, I think Vanderbilt's had a solid defense, but not as prolific as the offense. So this is a good comment here from our friend David. They might, that's a good point, because Pavia was really kind of cut loose last year. And we'll get into some of that with the roster construction, because it looks very different without him and a lot of the guys that they counted on last year.
And that was something I was thinking about too. You were talking about Tim Beck, right? And how he's done a great job. He, without a doubt, he has. In the last 2 years with Pavia have been incredible. But that's what I'm curious about, right? Is okay, what is the encore to the Pavia era with Tim Beck? Like, how does Tim Beck kind of fit this offense to the personnel that they have right now, which includes, we'll see if he ends up being the starter. I know there's some question as to whether it's going to be Blaise Berlowitz or whether it's going to be Jared Curtis, but you have a 5-star quarterback now at your disposal at Vanderbilt with a very different skill set than Diego Pavia. So what does Tim Beck do with his offense, to kind of fit the personnel with like what you have with somebody like Jared Curtis? So I'm fascinated to see what that encore looks like with Tim Beck.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's kind of dive into the roster construction, recruiting, all of that. So as we said at the outset, recruiting is not great there. Neither is the portal. So recruiting, they're averaging 44, 14th in the SEC. Again, the last couple of years, they've drastically outperformed that. Even in the portal, which I think is less about Vandy maybe not being able to get guys out of the portal in terms of like people don't want to go there, and probably more of an academic thing, if I had to guess. I think they have a real challenge getting guys, credits to transfer to a school like Vandy. So I think it is they sort of have to be self-selective in knowing that there are certain guys that are just not going to work or not going to want to come because they're going to, if it matters to certain guys, go from being a junior with 90 hours to a sophomore with 45 or something like that. So I think that hinders them quite a bit in the portal. But again, they've been very strategic. They found a way to get Diego Pavia eligible. I don't think that guy was going to class that much. So, it can be done.
Yeah.
It can be done, but again, the Vandy blueprint has and always will be diamonds in the rough. You got to find guys that are overlooked, and kind of fit what you want to do, because you're just not going to be in the running for most of these blue chips. A guy like Jared Curtis is awesome. I love that he is at Vanderbilt, and I got nothing against Georgia, but just Georgia doesn't need another blue chip, right? So I love that that's kind of spreading out, but it's just not something you're ever going to see Vandy reeling in, 6 of those guys in a recruiting class. So got to be realistic, got to find the diamonds in the rough. In terms of this year, the roster construction, we'll see if they've done it, because they lost a ton. So they returned 44% of their production, which is dead last in the SEC and 106th in the country. So they got a lot of guys to replace, as obviously Pavia leads that. Second in the Heisman, that's a ton of yards. He was their leading rusher, of course, leading passer, scored a boatload of touchdowns. He's gone. Eli Stowers, the Mackey Award winner, is gone. They had a big receiver transfer to Louisville, who I think was 700-800 yards. So they lost a lot of dudes, especially on offense, that they have to replace. Interestingly enough, only 48% of the roster is new, despite losing all that production. I think 48% as the new roster is the lowest I've seen so far. I need to double check that. But if you're below 50, based on what I've seen in terms of new faces between incoming freshmen and portal, you're below average, because most teams I looked at were 50, 60, sometimes even 70%. So what that means is they lost a ton of production, but a lot of the guys they're counting on to step up are guys who have been in the program, have been on campus for a couple of years now, which I think is probably good that you're relying on those, but also sometimes guys from the portal hit, and it might be nice to go plug a guy, who's a 4-star corner from UCF, as opposed to, Joe Schmo, who's been in your program for 3 years and hasn't started a game. So,
yeah,
what's the right move? I don't know. At this point, I think you can have a little bit of trust in that staff and Barton Simmons, that they know what they're doing. But they're going to be leaning on a lot of guys who are on the roster but don't have experience. In terms of actual positions, one to watch is the offensive line. Four starters are gone off of last year. Cade McConnell does return at guard. He's a stud, probably an all-SEC candidate, perhaps, if he has a good year, but he's a stud. But there'll be new faces everywhere else. So they did bring in some guys that I think could perform well and have starting experience. Bo Johnson, North Dakota State, was an FCS All-American. Lyndon Cooper was a multi-year starter at Pittsburgh. He's coming in. And then Micah Dubose has not started, but is a former top 200 recruit who started at Alabama. And then it looks like some guys that have been on the roster are going to battle for that right tackle spot. So we'll see. I mean, hey, an FCS All-American sounds good. Can he play in the SEC? I don't know. Top 200 recruit, hasn't played before. Who knows? So a lot of new faces on the O-line. We'll see how that pans out for them. Again, the other guy that I think is just worth bringing up here, if we're talking about new faces to look out for, obviously, is Jared Curtis. You brought him up. Don't know if he's officially going to win the job. If he's not the starter week 1 or hasn't been named it, I think he will be at some point during the season. You don't get a 5-star like that at Vanderbilt and not play him, in my opinion. So, look, behind a rebuilt offensive line, it could be tough, but he does have both their top 2 running backs are back to help him. And on the outside, Junior Sherrill comes back, 784 yards, 7 touchdowns a year ago. So he's got kind of the wide receiver 1 running backs to help him, but offensive line is a big question mark. Cole Spence returns at tight end, so Eli Stowers is gone, but Spence had a good year last year. He presumably will step into that tight end number 1 role. Some transfers to watch out for. Ja'Cory Thomas was an Old Dominion receiver. That was an electric offense a year ago. He had a good season, was a 4-star wideout, averaged like 17 yards a catch. So he's a big play guy. On defense, they have Brian Allen Jr., who comes in from Iowa at edge. They need a little bit of defensive line help for sure. So hopefully he pans out. And then they brought in Javante Connor at tight end from East Carolina. So alongside Spence and Vanderbilt really likes to run you have two tight ends on the field at the same time. So Spence was out there a lot with Stowers in that 12 personnel, and Javante Connor presumably will fill that as well, coming in at the other tight end spot opposite of Spence. So interesting to see how Tim Beck uses all these guys.
You may get into this in a minute here if you're going to stop me, but I was looking at the roster as well. One thing that jumped out to me is in terms of a transfer, I don't think you said it, Ricardo Jones from Clemson.
Yeah.
Pretty big at free safety. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to see. I think he was third team All ACC last year, 6 INTs, 46 tackles, 12 starts at Clemson. So that's a big pickup for them in the portal.
Yeah, it was Vandy's first ever all conference transfer. So pretty big. To get a guy like him on the back end. So we'll see. Again, they've got a few guys on the defensive line coming back. I think 3 starters. So in terms of, defense last year, it was like kind of middle of the road, but they're returning some guys, so we'll see. In terms of, we'll kind of power through here and then get into the schedule, but what went right last year, what went wrong, schedule, how they can earn extra biscuits, right? So what went right? Almost everything. It's the best season in Vandy history. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier at the outset, they win 10 games. Diego Pavia finished second in the Heisman. They hosted College Game Day. Nate Bargatze is offering Jared Curtis an NIL deal live on air, and Jared Curtis commits. I mean, 2025 was like the year of Vanderbilt. Theo Vaughn's on the sidelines, so much that he's in our graphic, right? So everything was coming up Vandy.
Where was Theo Vaughn this past weekend? He was on Vandy's sideline, man, all year. That's where he was.
He's
this
at
past
practice.
Weekend.
Yeah. He's at practice. So in terms of actual statistics, again, the offense was dynamite last year. Averaged 38.5 points a game. Again, Pick Six previews, number 1 opponent adjusted offense. In terms of total offense, they were 8th in points, 9th in yards. So by every statistic, this is a top 10 offense. If you take into account the opponent adjusted, even better. So Pavia was dynamic. Tim Beck knew what he was doing last year with that personnel, and they crushed it. So shout out, hats off to Vandy. What went wrong? Nothing. Again, come on. You're 10-2 at Vandy. Best season in program history. Like, I'm not going to nitpick on anybody. I think the one thing I would say, as you brought up, what went wrong, I wish they got in the playoff. They didn't. It stinks. Yeah. I wish they had. Otherwise, celebrate that season, man. There's nothing to look back on and say, you wish you'd have got Texas or a few things in that Bama game. That was a competitive game. But if your 2 losses at Vanderbilt are at Alabama and at Texas, I think you're doing just fine. Just fine. So
I was going to say the same thing. I mean, it's the playoff thing was my thing. What went wrong last year? You didn't make the playoff. And to some degree, that was out of your control. You win 10 games. What do you expect? We should be in the playoff. If you win 10 games to the SEC, you should probably be in the playoff. Now, you could also argue, as Clark Lee did, to his credit, he took it on the chin and basically was like, well, it is our fault. We should have beat Texas. We had Texas on the ropes and we didn't take it from them. We didn't win. We didn't give the committee – we gave the committee just enough doubt to say you're not going to get in. So I guess if you want to say that's what we're wrong, right, that's what we're wrong. You just didn't get in the playoff. And you just didn't do enough. It was that close, but you didn't do just enough in order to get in. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm looking at the schedule just quickly off the top of my head. Yeah, it's the best season in Vanderbilt history. They had 4 top 20 wins last year. 4.
Yeah.
They got 3 top
balling.
15 wins. They were balling at 3 top 15 wins. And then, not to mention that, but okay, you're down big to Texas in the first half. Looks like you're going to get absolutely smoked. And then in the second half, you make this incredible comeback. And if you recover that onside kick, I think you win that game because Vandy had all the momentum. And so if you added that one, right, if you had gotten Texas, that would have been 5 top 20 wins. Texas was ranked number 20 at the time they played. So, I mean, yeah, hard to argue that, yeah, what did go wrong? You know, yeah, at the end of the day, it was literally a ball that scooted out of bounds on an onside kick. Otherwise, you probably win 11 games and get in the playoff.
Yeah, 100%. So we're not going to nitpick the Commodores in 25. We'll just say not getting into the playoff was the only thing that went wrong for them, which is not in their control. So let's hop into the schedule, and I'll talk a little bit about what they need in 26. So obviously, we brought him up multiple times now. Jared Curtis, I think he, again, whether he's named the starter or they split time, what have you, that's who they need in 26 to play well, but also inspire hope for the future, right? You bring in a guy like that, he needs to get his feet under him this season, in my opinion, whether that means they win, 8, 9, 10 games. Yeah, Clark Lee, the jacked Commodore.
Yeah, I love it. I completely forgot. All right, there's our schedule reveal for tonight, everybody. I had the regular Bulldog of Mississippi State, but we love a good schedule reveal here, and I totally forgot that this was our schedule for Vanderbilt. And the fact that you just talked over that monotone like that, like you just blazed past the fact that we have Captain Clark Lee, the Commodore.
Commodore.
Oh my God.
It's just normal.
Oh yeah, for sure. Gosh, that cracks me up. Anyway, continue with the schedule.
Yeah. That's just normal. It's just normal.
Yeah.
So
that's what he looks like anyway after a quick pump.
Yeah, right. But that's what I think is the most important thing for them is get Jared Curtis, playing time, get him acclimated to the SEC, and hopefully he looks good, right? Because as we've been talking about here, I think there's a lot of things to like about this team and this staff, but losing a guy like Diego Pavia, losing a guy like Eli Stowers, being last in the SEC in returning production, there's a lot of hill to climb this season to expect, a repeat of what we saw last year. It's very hard to see that happening based on all the new faces that they're going to need to step up. And so what I think they need in 26 is, hey, can you get minimum back to a bowl game? I'd love to see 7, 8, 9 wins and then a Jared Curtis season. Maybe even, let's say, like an Arch Manning last year where there's rough times, but at the end of the year, you look back at the whole thing and you go, okay, this is good. Like this is our guy, quarterback of the future. He showed me a lot type of thing. So that's what I think they need. We want to see Vandy have staying power. So let's get back to a bowl at a minimum, and at least, more ideally like 7, 8, 9 wins would be huge to show that they weren't just a flash in the pan. It wasn't just Diego Pavia, but this team and staff has staying power. So with that in mind, I think they have a pretty manageable schedule by SEC standards, right? Obviously, NC State in the out of conference is not a guaranteed win. CJ Bailey's back for the Wolfpack. They'll be a challenge. But if you look at their SEC schedule, man, you get Arkansas, Auburn, Kentucky, Mississippi State. Like, those are some winnable games, especially for a team like Vanderbilt. At Georgia, tough. Home against Ole Miss, tough. Alabama, always tough. At Florida, tough, but I don't know what to think of Florida. Vandy's been better than them. And then Tennessee at home, dude.
Dub.
Tennessee. Look, Vandy destroyed them last year. So
they did.
If I'm a Commodore fan, you're dang right I'm counting that up as a dub.
Yeah, dub. Yep.
They dominated them. So it's a pretty workable schedule by SEC standards. You don't play Texas. You don't play Oklahoma, you don't play LSU. So there's some big boys you dodge. Again, Georgia, Ole Miss, Bama, Tennessee. Like you're not getting out of here with Cupcake Row, but I think by SEC standards, pretty workable. What do you think?
I think it's workable. There's definitely some landmines and tough ones there. Obviously, I mean, I actually think you look at early in the season. You know, we talk about momentum and these hinge point games of like where these, you know, win this game, the season can go this way based on your momentum, or lose this game, and you know you might have a much different outlook on the season. I'm looking at week 3 and week 4, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and then into week 5. I mean, that little stretch right there with NC State, as you said, CJ Bailey coming back, that kid can play quarterback for the Wolfpack. And I don't know how good NC State's going to be outside of CJ Bailey, but just him, you know, scares me enough. And so then getting into conference play there, going to Jordan-Hare scares me a little bit too. Okay, that's the game that I worry about a little bit. I don't know how good Auburn's going to be. Alex Golish in year 1, everybody's, you know, kind of hyping up Byron Brown as if he's going to be a really solid quarterback. So I don't want to lose that game in week 4 if I'm Vanderbilt, because then I got to go to Georgia. Everybody thinks you're going to lose that one. Even, you know, most of your fans think you're going to lose that one, as they should. That's Georgia, right? That's the best team in the conference, the best program in the conference over the course of the last 5-ish years. So that Auburn game, to me, if you lose that game, I get a little worried, because then it's Georgia, and then you got Ole Miss, and then you could have a loss or two. If you lose to Auburn, then you got 2 losses on there, maybe an NC State loss. That could be 3 losses early in the season. And then you're looking at a situation where you're worried about, okay, you know, we're going to backslide here this year, and we still have some games here on the schedule that are difficult, like Alabama later in the year, at Florida, never easy to go to the Swamp. And then Tennessee, I think, should be better this year as well. So you're right, though, like, is manageable with Arkansas, with Kentucky, Auburn, who knows what we got, Florida, kind of who knows what we got, Mississippi State, you know, we'll see, but you should be on par or much better than them. We'll see. But yeah, in terms of SEC schedule, I'm with you. I think it's manageable.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, let's just say, you know, games that they will be decidedly not favored in, underdogs. I would say it's Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, and maybe at Florida, maybe Tennessee, but those even I think are toss-ups. I mean, look, we just went over Mississippi State, had a win total of 4.5. Vandy's at 6.5. So the expectation is higher there, which it should be, but I don't know. We'll get to our actual predictions in a couple weeks here before the season, the next couple weeks, but even after doing all that, I feel unsure about Vanderbilt. There's so much I like about it, and then I look at the roster and I just see a lot of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed guys that I don't know anything about. So, you know, part of me wants to trust what I've seen the last 2 years, and then part of me's like, kind of what you said. Well, it's Vandy. Like, these guys can't be that good, right? But I think again, there's probably a middle ground where unlikely to go 10-2, but I don't think they're falling off a cliff. Like, you know, poof, this never happened.
Well, I famously picked Vandy's under last year, which I believe was it 6? I think they were over under at 6 last year.
Yeah, something was right around bowl eligibility. Yeah,
I picked them to backslide, I think, to 4-8, and then they went 10-2 promptly. So at this point, as an Aggie, I trust Mike Elko. If I'm a Vandy fan and just kind of assessing them right now, from what I've seen in the last 2 years and what I've seen from Clark Lee so far, of what he's done and kind of incrementally getting this program, and then we see a big jump, I'm kind of trust Clark Lee at this point. So
yeah. So the final thing here on Vandy, how can they earn some extra biscuits? I've basically been saying it the whole time we've been chatting, but just to be crystal clear, just show us you have staying power. You know, get to 8 wins, get to 9 wins, and show us that this was not a flash in the pan. Show us that Vandy actually is, you know, ascending, nipping at the heels of the elite programs in the conference, and is going to be a force to be reckoned with for years to come, rather than just, hey, a generational player comes through, goes to New York, almost wins a Heisman. When he leaves, the rest of the program kind of falters. And you can name 20 programs that applies to. In many ways, A&M to some degree after Johnny would fall into that of, you reach these heights and then you just can't get back to them. So hopefully that's not the case for Vandy. If they can get to 8 to 9 wins, I think that will earn them some extra biscuits in my book. Let's get out of here. Gosh, we've been going for an hour and 40 minutes. We got one more segment to close us out. That has been Vandy, Mississippi State. Again, we've been posting all these on YouTube chopped up. So if you just want to see the Vandy or just Mississippi State, those will be uploaded within the next week. We got a couple other videos coming. We've been all over the place we've done some interviews with Ellie Mae Williamson from the Players Lounge Tennessee, Reagan Scarta from Inside Arkansas. Those are both up on the YouTube channel right now if you want to talk Razorbacks or Vols. We also have a few coming in the hopper. I don't know if we want to reveal who they are. That's right. We had Vern Funquist, aka Chris Marlar, on Locked On Gamecocks to preview South Carolina. So we've had a ton of guests and shows that are all over our YouTube channel. You can just find them, where you're watching us now.
Yeah. So we've got a couple others coming up too. There's a couple I'm trying to work out right now that we don't have exactly locked in just yet, but we're trying to preview every team that we can before we get to the season. So I'm hoping to get to 16. I think we're going to get there. We also have John Tweet Sports. He's going to preview Georgia with us. We've got that one recorded. I just got to chop it up and edit that one. That one will be up. That one should be up, I think. That one's going to be up on Friday. Or no, sorry, that one's going to be up tomorrow. And we also have Ghost of Texas Football, Corey Samuels.
Yeah.
Now friend of the show. Great guy. Does a great job covering Texas football for Inside Texas. So same thing. I just got to chop that one up, make sure that I got everything right on the editing front. And that one should be up on our YouTube on Friday. And we'll have more coming for you next week. So be sure to check those out.
Absolutely. So we're really pumping it up ahead of the season. We appreciate y'all for tuning in, watching, liking, subscribing, the whole gamut. Before we get out of here, we always do 2 segments, one of which we don't have tonight. So Leach Coach of the Week, as I mentioned, we've just been busy this week, didn't get around to it. Also, not a whole lot going on. It's fall camp. Some coaches are talking, but I didn't see anything that was glaring. But we usually like to honor Coach Leach each week with our Leach Coach of the Week. And then, of course, we are Biscuits and SEC. We love the South, the food, the culture, and biscuits. So we do a Biscuit of the Week every week. If you want to be featured, send us one in, email, social media, DM, whatever. Tag us on social media. We'll see it. We'll see all the notifications. So there's a million ways to get a hold of us. It's not hard. If you want to be featured, we'd love to feature either a homemade biscuit or somewhere you go. This past week after we recorded our interview with John Tweet Sports, he tagged us in one that was one that he mentioned on the show. So this will be a little bit of a preview, so to speak. He mentioned in Atlanta, Martin's as some of his favorite, just like consistent go-to biscuits. So the picture on the left there is one that he tagged us in the day after we recorded with him. So I guess we got him thinking about biscuits because the very next morning he was in the Martin's drive-thru picking up a biscuit. The picture on the right there is just from Yelp review, but that looks like a country ham, egg, and cheese, and then a sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit. They look delicious. John was talking them up. He just said it's a consistent biscuit. They've got locations all around Atlanta. So next time I'm in Atlanta, will be going to a Martin's. Yeah, that just looks really stinking good.
I did not eat dinner before we got on here. I am absolutely starving right now, and I could eat like 6 of those. Both of those on the right side. I think that's some Virginia country ham there.
Yeah.
Or since they're in Georgia, some Georgia country ham, and it looks awesome. Man, also you guys ought to go look at our mentions, or I guess check out our replies and the tweet that John sent to us, because he sent us this picture. And then if you go and look in the comments, all those folks around the metro Atlanta area or who have moved out but know about Martin's, they were all in the comments talking about how great this place is and just how awesome their biscuits are. And yeah, you can see just from the pictures how good those look. So I am looking forward to getting some Martin's at some point. If you're going to be around the metro Atlanta area, be sure to put that one on your list.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is coming from a guy, you'll hear this in the interview, who in his like 9th grade home economics class showed everybody how to bake homemade biscuits. So this guy knows what he's talking about. So I think a worthy award winner biscuit of the week, Martin's in Atlanta. Go check them out if you are around. And with that, an hour and 45 minutes into the show, we will conclude. Thank you for watching again. Appreciate y'all joining us. We're excited for the season. We've got a ton of content coming. We've got a ton of content posted. We'll be continuing the newsletter, so sign up for that. And just thank you all for the support. We are excited for another season. We got some big things planned that we will discuss at a later date, but appreciate the support. Our friend Mike Huseman of Off Season After Dark has a couple shows coming up, Mountain West preview and then Notre Dame and Oklahoma State next week. Both of those should be sweet, all three of those, but Notre Dame and Oklahoma State in particular, because Notre Dame's national title contender. Oklahoma State is a brand new roster, so those will be great. Be sure to tune into Off Season After Dark Tuesdays, but he's also cranking it out this time of year, multiple days a week. The rest of our crew, our After Dark Network crew, SEC After Dark, tomorrow night, Thursdays, 9 o'clock Eastern. We get on with the whole gang and just chop it up, talk ball, give our picks once the season starts. And then Bama After Dark, our friend Jake Thomas runs that and should be cranking that up soon. So if you're a Bama fan, he'll be getting that going for the season. But yeah, with that, I think we can finally conclude. Good night to all. Appreciate y'all tuning in. We will see y'all here next week. End stream.